Alrighty, what is up, y'all? We are back, TK Gaming Podcast. Back, still once again, me, Spencer. We got Judd and Benji alongside me here. It's been a few weeks. We'll talk about that. I'm back from paternity leave, if you want to call it that. I have a healthy baby, somewhat happy baby. You never know with babies, right? They're always crying. But happy, healthy, back home, and I'm back at work already. We got Benji here. He has his daughter too, so we may hear a little bit of that, or he may just disappear for a little bit. That is okay. It's the life of having children. It's it's just something we're gonna have to deal with. I made that sound absolutely terrible. It's, parental duties. Me and Benji may disappear for a segment or just be mute for a question, but that is okay. That's what I'm getting at. I made it sound
Yeah, you're just
absolutely
taking
terrible.
care of the kiddos.
That's all it is. Yeah, I made it sound terrible. But no, we did have a previous episode 3, recorded prior to me going on paternity leave. I didn't quite get around to editing it, and by the time I did, everything was just so outdated. It's crazy how much changes in the gaming world in just a week or two. I'm excited for when we start doing these every single week and just seeing how different every single week is, because it is absolutely insane. Just today, right? We're recording this a few days in advance. Just give me time to edit and everything. Just today, there could be some massive news coming out about Ubisoft, and we're not even going to talk about that today. But you know, it could be completely different tomorrow or be flipped upside down. So we may do, like, I don't want to say an emergency episode, but maybe a short episode, or I don't know, maybe we'll do something with Ubisoft here in the next week or so. I don't know about doing a double episode in the same week, but maybe we'll see. But with that, man, we're going to be starting out with recent releases and upcoming games from Judd, as always. He's going to name some of the games that came out since we were last here, our last episode. And then he's going to kind of do a quick recap of all the games coming out. Well, all the games that we know or kind of are tracking coming out for the rest of the month of November. So we'll go through that. And then the big topic of the day, there's been a ton of news about just gaming hardware being announced via the Xbox Rog Ally. There's some new Steam stuff coming out. So we're going to basically just focus on that and have that be our only main topic for the day. But there's a ton of stuff to talk about. And we all have kind of some neat opinions. I feel like some stuff that is pretty common out there, but also some stuff that, I don't know, may be a little unusual or a little curveball opinion maybe. We'll see. With that, man, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Judd. He'll take us through it all.
Howdy, guys. Hey, so this is just a recap of games that dropped within the last month while we weren't active. We've got Ghost of Yotei. We got Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2. And then Battlefield 6, Little Nightmares 3, Pokemon Legends Z and A, Jurassic World Evolution 3, Ninja Gaiden 4, Persona 3 Reload, Plants vs. Zombies Replant, The Outer Worlds 2, Arc Raiders, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake, and Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. NASCAR 25, Anno 117, Pax Romana, Heimer 2000, Call of Duty Black Ops 7, Clawpunk, Where Winds Meet, Solo Leveling, Arise Overdrive. And those are all the new games that have just come out, or should have just come out. Well, I'll lead it into you, Spencer. So, Spencer, what of these games have you played, if any at all, and what are your thoughts on some of them?
Yeah, funny enough, having a baby, way less time to game. Who would have thought, man? No, actually, I've found a ton of time, thankfully, to put into NASCAR 25 somehow. Absolutely my most anticipated game of the year. I'm a big NASCAR fan. This game has been wonderful. I even got a little series going on my sports channel. I'll put that link in the description. I'm having a ton of fun with it. It's a fun game for me if you like NASCAR games. If not, you probably won't like it too much. I've been watching a ton of these other games closely. I got rid of Game Pass just because, I wasn't really using it. And then obviously the whole Game Pass increase in price debacle. I was like, well, I'm not even going to be able to game the next couple months, so I'm just going to get rid of it.
Same.
Yeah, and that sucks because there's several games on here like Ninja Gaiden 4 and The Outer Worlds 2 that are on Game Pass and would have been nice to check out. But other than that, not really. Ghost of Yotei, I didn't really have a ton of interest in. Battlefield 6, I'm bummed in. I really want to play that. I just have no time. So that and Plants vs. Zombies, I was talking about maybe playing that one, and I never got a chance, unfortunately. But we'll see. We'll see if I can crack into any more of these. Once again, longest backlog in the world. It's probably me. I don't know. What about you? I know you got into a little bit of Battlefield 6.
Yeah, so I have played a decent amount of Battlefield 6. I think I have somewhere close to 100 hours in it at the moment. Don't quote me on that. I actually have to look into it. I don't have Steam open at the moment. But I actually really enjoy it. I think it's good. Do I think it meets my expectations of what they portrayed to us? I think it meets them but doesn't exceed them. And if I was to explain it, I think the maps are kind of a step back. The only real map that I've found a lot of enjoyment in is some of the beta maps and then Operation Firestorm, which even this Operation Firestorm is the smallest of any of the versions of Operation Firestorm that have come out, which there's been at least two other versions with Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. So it's the smallest version of any of those maps. There's just a general consensus that the maps in Battlefield 6 are smaller than really any other Battlefield, and I think it has a lot to do with the engine and the item limitations causing hardware stuff. I'm not trying to get into a whole review of it right now, but I think it meets expectations. I think it has a lot that it could do, and I think it has a lot of upward movement. So I don't think it's bad. I really don't. If I was to get a general consensus on it right now, I actually do really enjoy playing it. And Red Sec's not bad. Color me impressed, but I think Red Sec is actually pretty good. That's the Battle Royale.
Yeah, and I think you're actually working on a review too, so hopefully we get to hear that here soon. I'd be curious, yeah, and
Yes.
especially if you get the video footage from me. I've seen quite a bit online. It looks fun. I've heard that small map thing too. But like you said, yeah, we won't get into
Yeah.
it right now. But so far, I think Battlefield has met expectations. Way better than the previous entry. Well, we won't even go there.
Yeah,
So they've rebounded,
definitely.
I think. I think that's fair to say, at least a little. So
Yeah.
um,
No, and I think a lot of their forward momentum comes from their version of Forge. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Battlefield Portal actually helps it a lot.
huh.
But color anybody surprised? I have not played Jurassic World Evolution 3 since it came out.
I'm shocked. Yeah, I'm shocked about that because what NASCAR 25 was to me, that game was to you. So I am a little shocked.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I had to choose between Battlefield 6 or Jurassic World Evolution 3 just because of money issues and stuff. It's not really that big of a deal, but
Holidays
I
are
had to
coming
choose
up.
between one or the other for a while.
Holidays are coming up. You'll be playing that game shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What-
Oh yeah.
one of
Defi-
these,
around
it'll
the
go on
holiday,
sale
there's
or
no way.
yeah,
There's no way that I don't.
you'll get it here. Same with Plants vs Zombies. I know it's just a remake of the first game, but I really wanted to play that, so I'm excited for that.
Definitely, yeah. Honestly, one of the things that unexpectedly has looked really good to me is Arc Raiders. It's one of the first extraction shooter type PvPvE things that actually looks really interesting to me since I've been watching a streamer by the name of The Burnt Peanut play it a whole lot, and I honestly think it looks pretty good as far as an extraction shooter goes. It doesn't look like it's extremely ruthless or whatever, being able to go in with free kits and everything. Obviously, you're at a disadvantage if you do that, but it looks like it's got a good community around it. It's not as toxic as Tarkov.
I'm glad you said that
So,
because that's a
um,
game that when we were talking about potential game of the years, that we always say, hey, there could be a game that just sneaks through and like steals it at the end. Like I feel like a lot of people are saying Claire Obscure, Hollow Knight, Silk Song,
Yeah.
and a few other games that have been out for quite a while now. But it always seems like a game comes in October or November and it takes game of the year. And is it because it's fresh in
Right.
people's mind, or is it because it is genuinely game of the year? Case by case, I guess. A lot of people think Arc Raiders is game of the year. I don't know if I'd make that point, but like you said with extraction shooters, I think this leads the way. I think a big issue with extraction shooters is historically they've always been extremely broken. Very fun concept, but there's just so many clips out there from games like Tarkov
Yeah.
or Vigor as another one where they are just almost unfun to play because of how broken they can be. But this one
Well, yeah,
seemed
you
to do
just-
pretty well.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're all good.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to butt in. I was just trying to bounce off of you. And basically, yeah, like the extreme competitiveness that comes with an extraction shooter and like dealing with campers or like in the streamer situation, if you're streaming, you stream snipers that kind of ruin the entire fun for you unless you interact with them. It kind of comes with the territory. And I don't think a lot of extraction shooters will ever be in like a game of the year category unless they make a new category for multiplayer games
Yep.
entirely.
I was just gonna say
You know,
that.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and you can bounce off that if you want.
Well, yeah, no, I was gonna say that. I know we're getting way off topic here, but I think game of the year we need to eventually branch it into two, right? Just a multiplayer game of the year.
Yes.
single player game of the year. And I know there's a lot of games that may have both, like Call of Duty. Now, I'm not saying Call of Duty is going to get game of the year, but you would specify you got Call of Duty multiplayer game of the year. If the multiplayer is that good, right? It doesn't mean the campaign's anything. But because it's really hard to compare. Like 2016, I'm pretty sure it was Overwatch won Game of the Year. And you look at some of the other games that came out in 2016. I'd have to look it up, but I remember I did, and I was like, well, I know Overwatch was a very popular game, but you're talking in quality of game. There's not much to Overwatch. It was popular. It's probably the most played game of the year, but in quality of the game,
that's about it.
Yeah, that's tough. It's really tough to compare multiplayer to single player. I would not hate if they did 2 games of the year, one for single, one for multiplayer. Yeah, moving on. Benji, do you have any of these games that you've played or?
Well, not really. As always, I'm a one game kind of guy, and currently that's still Terraria. But I have been looking forward to trying to play Arc Raiders. My little brother's been telling me about it, and and again, I don't ever play extraction shooters. I have a couple of them, but the way he's been talking about Arc Raiders, it seems pretty fun. But he is also right now on a massive grind with DayZ, and I know Arc Raiders kind of fits in that category, extraction shooter, survival type stuff. Pretty much what you guys said about the game. I mean, I don't play extraction shooters, so I also don't know too much about it. But Arc Raiders is one. Plant vs Zombies, kind of same with you, Spencer. I've been kind of wanting to play that one too. Been trying to see. I know it's a remaster, but kind of trying to see what else they add, what else to kind of bring back the series. Besides that, everything else on the list, and Battlefield, I have been kind of looking forward for Battlefield. I mean, I've only played Battlefield 4 twice. Then that's when one of our buddies bought it for me, and I've only played it twice and never touched it again, and it's been years.
If you get Battlefield 6, I'll get it with you, and we'll start our grind together. Because Judd's gonna be months ahead of us. we have kids. We're not catching them.
Well, and that's the thing. I will still play with you guys.
Oh yeah,
I do not care.
No, we will.
I'll help you guys. I'll be your designated revive.
Medic. No, if you're anything like Repo, it's not happening.
For November, the upcoming games are Deadpool VR, Rune Arc, Chisimble, Demon School, The Thrill of the Fight 2, Unco Technica, Winter Survival, Demio X Dungeons & Dragons Battlemark, Kirby Air Raiders, Neon Inferno, R-Type Delta HD Boosted, Terminator 2D No Fate, Nano Neighbors. All right, and on that note, with that said, what games are we actually excited for very quickly?
None.
Yo, low key.
I mean, honestly, probably Deadpool, maybe Kirby. I used to play a tiny bit of Kirby back in the day when I used to stay the night at a friend's house and he had Kirby on the DS. But even that's stretching it. I love Nintendo, but I only love Nintendo for 2 games or 3 games. Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon. Anything past that, you ain't gonna get me on that much. But then Deadpool VR is kind of the only one in this list that to me seemed entertaining because again it's Deadpool series. Well, games I'm not too sure. I know that there's a couple games that came out maybe in the past 10ish years if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but besides that, honestly they shouldn't even just come out. They should just stay pending forever. Just never come out. Let's be honest here.
I wouldn't say that. No, I wouldn't say. We may be missing a few games. If we're ever missing a few games, feel free to comment them. We do check a couple of websites. I mean, at first we were only picking games we liked, but we did want to announce other games too, just because there may be some games that you guys listening may be interested in that we may not be. Just reminding you, it is coming out soon. Sometimes, a game that gets announced a year in advance, you forget about, and maybe we're the ones to remind you. That's kind of what we're going for. But there may be more games not announced here. But yeah, it seems like the rest of November is going to be kind of a stinker. I don't want to say these games suck, right? But just nothing that I'm super excited for. They could always come out, look cool, and then get me into. But I'm not even going to say Deadpool and stuff because that's VR. I just don't see me playing it.
Probably doesn't help. I don't mean to cut you off, but it probably doesn't help that we're more action-packed people. A lot of these are kind of more somewhat towards that anime genre, anime side-scroller type stuff,
Some are, but also we're talking about our backlog too. Just from games that have released in the last month we haven't played. All of us have multiple. It's are we really looking to add these games that we haven't really heard of? So I don't know. Is there anything standing out for you, Jed?
Honestly, the only one that kind of catches my eye just because it has Dungeons and Dragons at the title is the Demio X Dungeons and Dragons Battlemarked. I have no clue what Demio is, so I'm a little wary of that because I don't know that name. That name's not familiar to me. But I'd be willing to take a look at it, literally just because it has D&D in the name. The VR stuff has never interested me besides like one game, and like VR is just not in a place yet where I find that it's even worth me paying money to get into. Terminator 2D, I could possibly see myself looking at, but that's literally just because of the title Terminator. So I don't know. I'd take a look at some of these games, but realistically, none of them are like ones that I've known about or heard about yet.
This is gonna be terrible for me to say, but these are all games that like. Except for Kirby, Nintendo games, but these are all games that, like, if they were on Game Pass, I'd probably give a shot and just see how they are. But other than that, I'm not like waiting in line or spending my
Right.
money day one on it. If some clips surface and I'm like, okay, that looks cool, then I would. But yeah, these are
Well,
kind
I
of Game
think,
Pass.
yeah, well, and that's because I think these games specifically are like catered to specific audiences.
Yeah,
They are
for sure.
definitely not
Yeah.
your typical like AAA release titles that everyone's tracking.
No,
or...
yep.
No, 100%. That's kind of like what I was saying earlier. It's like we're more like action type guys. So more first person shooters type stuff. And it's like not 100%. That's what we're all dedicated to. Obviously, I'm playing Terraria, and that's a 2D survival game. And so it's not like 100%, but just like Judd said, it's like it is definitely more directed to a certain audience. Like some of these, like definitely more to the anime fan base, and that's a whole genre on its own.
Yeah, I mean, moving on. Yeah, I think that sums it up for previous games that have come out since our last episode, and then games that are coming out here soon. We didn't even mention Call of Duty is coming out. Black Ops 7 is coming out just a couple days prior. None of us are really looking forward to that. I think we've all been done with Call of Duty since Cold War. Benji maybe even sooner, to be honest, but nothing special.
I think I was even sooner. I played Cold War, but literally never touched the multiplayer. I only played zombies.
I got into Cold War pretty hard. We'll save Call of Duty for another day, but yeah, Call of Duty coming out. We didn't even mention that. I know that's always a big drop. We're just not really looking forward to it. But yeah, the big topic for today, man, and once again, this is a little bit old news just because we haven't had an episode in probably over a month at this point. Xbox announced the Rog Ally. It's a new handheld Xbox console at what I assume they are developing to challenge the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck. They've seen how just absolutely popular the Switches are. The Switch 1 and the 2's now out. Let's not forget about the Switch 2 dropping fairly recently within the last couple of months. Both consoles incredibly popular. The Switch 1 is, I think, one of the top 3 most sold consoles of all time, behind, I think, the Wii. And is it PS2? Is that the correct order? It really depends where you look. Some lists are saying the Nintendo DS actually outsold the Switch, but it really depends where you go. But the Nintendo Switch is easily one of the most sold consoles of all time, extremely popular, and it's handheld. That's the weird kicker about it, is it's a handheld console, which you wouldn't expect. But the Steam Deck came out too, and the Steam Deck is overwhelmingly positive as well, being able to play most of your Steam library on it. There's some games that don't really work well on it, some of the, I guess, heavier duty games we would call it. But Xbox announces its version of the handheld. It's entering the handheld console world. Really, where my issue with this announcement is the price. The price for the more powerful version of the Rog Ally X, I believe is what it's called, $1,000, not including tax. It is $999.99. Specifically, not including tax and all that extra stuff. You don't even have a game. You're a grand in, you don't even have a game for a handheld. We're going to get into that a little bit. I think that's insane. They have their regular Rog Ally for just $599.99. Mind you, brand new Xbox Series X is what, $650? I'll put the specs on the screen here in editing because we were going to dive into specs for every single console, but we're going to be listing off a ton of consoles here, just kind of comparing apples to oranges. So I'm just going to put them on screen. You can pause and kind of look at them yourself and just get an idea. Just some prices, right? The Switch 2, which, like I said, just recently came out. I think we're all aware of that. It's $449.99. So $450 for the Switch 2. The cheapest version of the Rog Ally X is $600, so an extra $150. Now, once again, I'll put all the specs on screen for you to look at. The Rog Ally could be a little bit better. I mean, we will see as time goes on. in theory, it does have better specs, so it should perform a little bit better. What is $600 for a handheld console worth it? I don't know. That's something I guess you're going to have to... Supposedly, you can still plug the ROG Ally into your TV, and it'll function like a console, like a Switch will.
Okay.
But when an Xbox Series X is $600, $650 we'll call it, and this one's, the cheaper version, the one that performs not as well as $600, will people do that? Or you're going to have to buy an Xbox Series X for $650 and then go get a Rogue Ally if you want to play your games handheld wise. And that, we're talking over $1,200. There's a lot to talk about with that. But the Steam Deck, I want to mention also the Steam Deck price. So Switch 2 is $450. The Rogue Ally is either $600 or $1,000. The Steam Deck varies between $400 and $650. So the best version of the Steam Deck, the highest quality Steam Deck you can get, is just a little bit more than Xbox Rogue Ally. It's actually the same price as an Xbox Series X. Getting into some specs, the Switch 2 is still always kind of lacking behind, just like the Switch 1 was, in my opinion. It has 12 gigabytes of RAM. There's some other specs, once again, I'm going to put on screen, but I'm going to focus on the RAM, because I think that's the most notable when you're running a little bit heavier duty of games. Switches are great when it comes to Nintendo developed games like Mario, Pokemon and stuff, but once you start getting into some of the other games like Skyrim and stuff, they don't really perform. I think we all know. The Steam Deck, as far as I know, across the board, they're 16 gigabytes, which is a 4 gigabyte increase, which is a little bit better, and they're also a little bit older. The Steam Deck's been around for a little bit. The Rogue Ally, just the generic, more cheaper version of this new Xbox handheld console, does have 16 gigabytes of RAM to match the Steam Deck. However, the $1,000 version, the Rog Ally X, supposedly has 24 gigabytes of RAM. And for a handheld console, that is pretty good. I'll give it that. But is $1,000 worth, an extra 8 gigabytes? It could be. I don't know. That's something that what do you guys think? All right. I know I'm spitting out a lot of numbers, a lot of prices, a lot of specs here. What are you guys kind of leaning for these? I'm making it seem like I hate the Rogue Ally. I'm not looking to buy it. I'll get into that here in a little bit. But
the price I really don't care for. I'd rather just buy a low-end computer for that, to be honest. At that point, like, I get the handheld aspect of being able to take it anywhere and not really worry about, I need a place to sit it down and set it up, like a laptop or something like that. You can actually carry it. It's actually, like, usable, carry it around. I just think they're hitting above the belt, or they're hitting below the belt with the price. I think they're gouging just because of the ROG name. And the thing is like, it's going to come standard with Steam on it, and you'll be able to play Windows games and stuff like that. Like, at that point, it's just a Steam Deck with some better hardware, possibly some better hardware in it. And even then, when you have that happening, right, Steam's coming out with their console, which means they're going to blow this out of the water anyways. I don't think it's going to sell well. I really don't. I just don't see it selling well because of the price point. It's literally double the asking price that we've seen recent consoles and stuff, and it's a handheld. I don't see it working out for them. I really don't.
I'm kind of with Jed on this one. I mean, to be 100%, I mean, the Switch in general has been out, and I mean, like, Nintendo's been on the whole handheld console for a long time and whatnot. So it's like, you gotta bring, not only the fact that you're putting Steam on there and all that stuff. Jed pretty much said the most of it, but it's just like, you gotta bring something else to the table besides it being handheld, like, and like, I think the Switch kind of just set like the bar, like bare minimum. You at least got to be able to, at least to me, in my opinion, if you're gonna do a handheld now, and it can be like your main console. I think the compatibility of just going from handheld to your TV, I feel like that's kind of just has to be an essential thing now, just because the Switch made that a staple now. But somehow you would have to bring something else to the table for anybody else, that's not the Switch, not Nintendo. If you're gonna do a handheld console, just like them, you gotta spice up the pot. Because to be honest, it's just like, at this point, just go buy a PC, or you might as well just save your money and go buy a PC part and just continue building your PC, or don't even go for it at that point,
There's so many paths to go down, because with the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2, Nintendo has a hell of a library with their exclusive games. Like I said, the great thing about the Switches is if it's a Nintendo developed game, a Nintendo IP, like Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, there's a few others, all those games run just amazing on the Switch 1 and 2. Doesn't matter. If it's a Nintendo game, it's going to run great. I don't think that's going to be the case with the Xbox. They don't have a ton of exclusives. So is playing these games in a handheld going to be worth it? And can it even play most of these Xbox games? You know, it's not like people are going to be going to the Rog Ally to play Call of Duty. It probably might, but Call of Duty, I mean, it struggles to run on a lot of PCs. And we've seen when a new Call of Duty comes out and it's not fully optimized or patched, or just when Call of Duty's not fine-tuned, it doesn't really run on console that well sometimes. So I don't know, for that price, I can't see anyone making the Rog Ally their primary console, is what I'm getting at. And so who would pay $1,000 for like a secondary console? Like, no one's going to be like, oh, I don't have an Xbox, I'm just going to get the Rog Ally because then I can play all the Xbox games. Because it may not work. You may not be able to play some games. And if you're talking, you want to play some heavier duty games, like I said, 24 gigabytes RAM, that's pretty good. I think that'll run quite a bit of games. I don't want to sleep on that. But for $1,000, you know, you're right in that middle between, in my opinion, console and PC pricing. I feel like console pricing, to me, a healthy $500. I know they're getting up into the $600 now. I feel, to me, that's console. You pay $500 flat now, $600. You plug it into TV. It's just plug and go, plug and go. It's super easy. You plug a console into any room of the house. Xbox finally switched to the universal cable that PlayStation's been using forever. So you can literally have that plugged in behind every TV in your house and just set the console down, HDMI, power, you're good to go. It takes 30 seconds max, and that's if you have to sneeze in the middle of it. PCs, you don't really have that portability where you could just move a PC into any room of the house and just be good to go. PCs are often just one person sits down and use it. It's not like a bunch of people are hooking controllers up to a PC to play co-op games with each other like you do for consoles, but PCs are a little bit more heavier duty. You may be paying, I think a low-end PC in today's economy is probably going to be about $1,500. And like I said, consoles are about $500. So it's just a handheld console is somehow in the middle price-wise between an actual console in a PC, and I don't know how well that's going to sell, especially because, like I mentioned, the Switch 2 has its own exclusive market of games that run well on it, and then the Steam Deck, which we haven't really talked about. Yes, there's 3 versions of the Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck may not be able to run everything on Steam. Actually, I know it can't run everything on Steam, but the price is $350 less for their best version. That's still 16 gigabytes of RAM. Is $350 worth it? I don't think so. I really don't. And that's kind of getting into our next category here. We're going to be able to loop in back with this, guys, if you want to hop back into, but we have another console announced by Steam, hopping into it, the new Steam Machine. Now, this one was just freshly announced this week, actually. We changed our whole episode for it. We wanted to talk about it. Prices to be determined. I think put an asterisk next to that, because that's going to be the biggest factor in this. If the Steam Machine works, I think Xbox could be screwed, because to me, sidestep, I think Xbox, it's not official, but I think it's pretty obvious that Xbox is getting rid of the console, like TV console, just plug it into the TV, and they're going more than Nintendo Switch route. They want the handheld, and Nintendo doesn't have this, but they want PC. Xbox wants to go PC and handheld. I don't think they want to do a full-size console anymore. Or maybe the Rog Ally is supposed to take over for that, like the Switch. I don't know. Steam having a portable console, a handheld console, that's pretty good, fair price, and now announcing an actual console. I think Xbox could be in some trouble. And I'm a big Xbox guy. I don't hate Xbox. I'm not an Xbox hater. So all the Xbox fanboys, come here saying, oh, he just hates Xbox. No, I've played Xbox virtually my whole life. I love Xbox. I think they're in a tough spot. I think they tried to make a move and they failed a little bit. What are you thinking, Judd?
I really think Xbox took a nosedive when they tried the home DVR thing with the all-in-one system. When they originally made that push back with the Xbox One, I really think that was the turning point of Xbox, and it starting to go downhill and people noticing that it was going downhill. They're not playing the ball anymore. They're switching their goalpost, and it's not a good one. It's really become apparent to me over the last few years that Xbox is going in such a way that they don't even care about their original games that they made for the consoles and stuff, like Halo. Halo has taken such a nosedive in the last, I want to say 5 to 8 years, or possibly even just a decade. In the past decade, Halo has taken such a nosedive because there's been a lack of care for the game. I believe the last good Halo was Halo Reach, like really, really good. Everybody loved it. It ended with Halo Reach. Now I know that's Bungie days, right? Before 343 took over. I liked Halo 4's story, and I know a lot of people probably disagree with me for that. But I think that's where Xbox started to take a dip. Their properties, their intellectual properties started taking a nosedive because they were being handed off, and there's been this transition and everything over the last 10 years. And I think it's led to the nosedive, and now they're opening up all their IPs to other platforms and such, which I believe is a good thing. More people playing these IPs, I have always believed is a good thing. I do not believe in the console wars. All consoles deserve love, no matter what it is. The only thing I hate is when a bad console is pushed under us and it's promoted as like this holy grail of console. I don't like that. That's a company thing. That is the issue with that. I love Xbox. I've also grown up on Xbox. My first console was PlayStation 2, but after, moving up, I moved to an original Xbox and then the Xbox 360 and so on and so forth, because that's what my friends are on and that's what I wanted to be on, right? And I enjoyed it. I like the controller scheme better. I do. But, I mean, that stuff's kind of besides the point. I'm going on a bit of a tangent. I don't even know really what else to say about it. Like, Xbox, I think they're just switching and going more of the PC route, like we've kind of said. I hope that that's their end goal, is that they're pushing towards a Windows Microsoft union of sorts, which I don't actually believe is a good thing, by the way, because it means they have a monopoly on the gaming market, and Microsoft already kind of does. Microsoft actually has a semi pseudo monopoly on the entire computer industry, for that matter. That's an entirely different conversation, but I mean, that's kind of my 2 cents. I know I kind of ramble on here, but that's just how I feel about it. I think it's sad to see it go this way. I hope that there's something better in the future, but it's rocky for sure.
That was another thing I was going to bring up too, right? Is just very recently, right? GameStop, the government of the United States, all were memeing, hey, we've ended the console wars, right? One more war that's over. We've mediated. The console wars are over. Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft live in harmony. The four nations at last. The Fire Nation's been defeated. Okay, first off, I'm kind of bummed. All right, I like the console war for a couple reasons. I know Judd said he doesn't. I love all the consoles, right? I got every single console that has come out in the last 20 years, just about. I love consoles. I love exclusivities. I know a lot of people hate that, but I feel like that just gives a console a little bit of character, right? When I say PS4 or even PS3, Benji, give me 3 PS3 games that you can only play on PS3 that anyone that owned a PS3 would know.
Oh man, I think you're talking about like Uncharted series, God
Yep,
of War. What was another one? I have it. Killzone.
Just keep going.
You got Ratchet and Clank. You got there is a handful, especially with PS4 coming in. I think the Spider-Man series was an exclusive, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong now.
Yes, it was. Last of Us 2, not as popular, still was there.
Last of Us 1 was very popular. Last game of the PS3 era.
Let's talk a recent game of the year that's an exclusive game on PlayStation 5, Astrobot. It's a great game, only available on PS5, or at least was. It might be coming to PC if I've heard correctly. Don't quote me on that. Go back to the Xbox 360, right? I said PS3, go back to the Xbox 360. Judd, you were there in the 360 days. What are games that were only on the 360?
I believe initially when Minecraft was blowing up massively, like worldwide, right after like PC release had been out for like probably I think a couple years at that point, like way before even like 1.8 was released. Well, actually, I believe the console version, the exclusive like Xbox 360 edition, came out around 1.8 of Minecraft. And that's one of the biggest things, was because it did not release on PlayStation initially, and then it did after a while.
Yep, you are absolutely right. Minecraft was available on PC, yes, but it was on Xbox 360 for years before it came to PlayStation. Actually, it was a massive deal when it came to PlayStation, because I remember Microsoft had bought Minecraft, going on a tangent, but then they allowed it to go on PlayStation, and everyone's like, whoa, that's crazy. So that's one. A couple more. I mean, think of some big names that are no longer Xbox exclusives, but back in the 360 days, man, everybody was on these two games. I know what franchises you're talking about. You already mentioned one of them.
Yeah, Halo, definitely Halo. And then Gears of War. Gears of War is shifting actually over to a non-exclusive.
Yep. It is officially
they
on PlayStation.
Released on PC, at least I think for the remasters and everything.
It's on
Well,
PlayStation
not
now.
well, is it fully released on PlayStation?
Yeah,
I didn't actually know that.
I'm pretty
Yep.
sure it is. I think I just saw it not too long ago.
Yeah, actually, we didn't even mention this in recent games to get announced, but it just got released recently. A version of Gears of War is available on PlayStation called Gears of War Reloaded. It is
Yeah, I
released on the
think that's the
PS5.
newest. Yeah, I think that's like the newest remaster or whatever of the first game.
Yeah, I mean, so when I say Xbox 360 exclusives, I know we named a lot more for PS3. There's some more for Xbox too. But when I say PS3 exclusives or PS3 culture, PS3 personality, same with the Xbox 360. Those games or consoles have a ton of personality. I mean, you wanted both, right? You didn't just want an Xbox 360 because it could play all the same games as a PS4. The consoles had a completely different culture, completely different feeling, in my opinion. And you wanted both. Yes, games like Call of Duty played on both. And I wouldn't hate crossplay between like Call of Duty on like PS4 or sorry, PS5 and Xbox Series X, but then each console has their own independent games that it gives you a reason to buy the game. Because right now, what I'm getting at, Xbox is absolutely number one in cost right now. If you want to get the handheld, it is the most expensive handheld on the market. If you want to get their console, it is the most expensive console on the market. They're looking to get into the PC game. Will it be the most PC? It won't be. You know, there's so many PC combinations out there. But will it be one of the, an expensive PC on the market? Is it going to be like super consumer friendly? Like, all right, their consoles are expensive, but their PCs are really good deal for, what they are. Maybe that's the route Xbox is going. But their consoles are so freaking expensive compared to the competition, yet you can play every game on an Xbox console on a different platform for essentially just about the same specs. I mean, the PS5, a lot of people will say the PS5 runs better than the Xbox Series X. PS5 is cheaper than the Xbox Series X. I don't want to get into that conversation. To me, they're pretty dang close, and it's case-by-case basis for sure. It's also a game-by-game basis. But if you can save $100 and buy a PS5 and then play all the same games you could on it, why would you buy the Xbox Series X? That's what I'm kind of getting at. With all the Switch, like I said, they have their own exclusive games. If you want to play Mario, you have to buy a Switch. End of story. That doesn't matter. So they're kind of in their own category a little bit here. But with the Steam Deck, why would you get the Rogue Ally when the Steam Deck's $350 cheaper and you can play almost all the same games on the Steam Deck as you could in Xbox Rogue Ally? Xbox Rogue Ally may have a little bit better hardware, yes, but $350, that, I don't know, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I looped all the way back into the Rogue Ally. I know we kind of moved on to the Steam Machine. I said we'd kind of be bouncing back and forth because we're just talking consoles across the board here. But what I was saying is the price to be determined for the Steam Machine is going to be a huge factor, because if it is more than the Xbox Series X, that kind of kills my point. That saves Microsoft, I feel like. If the Steam Machine is a $750, $800 console, which it could be, looking at its specs, we didn't even mention the spec. It's not all that great. It's 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is already less than the Rog Ally X, which is a handheld console. But it looks okay. The new Steam Machine is 16 gigabytes of RAM, like I mentioned. The Xbox Series X and the PS5 are both 16 gigabytes of RAM. So it is absolutely possible. And if the other equipment and the other specs all work out, I think it could be good. It's just the price. Another thing to note that a lot of people are talking about with the new Steam Machine is that not only is it kind of on par with the Xbox Series X and PS5 equipment-wise, it's similar. The price is to be determined, but it's the game log, essentially. The amount of games that you could have on that thing. Your entire Steam library, once again, not every game may be playable. I think most games will be. Maybe not as heavily modded on Steam. I think that's the fun thing about Steam is you can go and get Civilization and you can mod the hell out of it. You can't mod the hell out of Civilization on Xbox. That game releases on both. Steam, it's heavily modded. Xbox, it's not. So you may not be able to do that on this new Steam Machine. But with 16 gigabytes and specs very similar to the Xbox Series X and PS5, I think the Steam Machine will be able to play most games on the Steam store.
Well, it'll come pre-packaged with Steam as its thing, and you'll be able to download like Windows to it.
Yeah, there you go. And that was the other half I was getting into, is a lot of people are saying this isn't necessarily legal, but I don't think this console will restrict you to emulate games that may not be on Steam. I don't know, that we'll have to see if that comes to fruition. If that's the case, I think Xbox is screwed, because I feel like,
oh yeah, definitely,
consoles, like I was saying, I went on my whole rant, they have to have exclusivity. You have to have a reason to buy the console. If you are the same exact specs as two other consoles, but you're the most expensive, and you have no specific games that people buy you for, who's going to buy you? Who's going to spend $350 extra to get the exact same games and equipment you could get on any other platform is kind of what I'm getting at. And I don't know, we'll see. The Steam machine, I think, could hurt Xbox. That's kind of wrapping it up once again. Just to mention it one more time, we mentioned how the console wars have supposedly ended. And I mentioned I like the console wars. I think truthfully, I think it creates better games, right? Going back to the PS3, PS4 days one more time, Sony and Xbox, they had to hit, right? If they were investing tens and tens of millions of dollars into a game, and it's Halo, this is the biggest release of the year for the Xbox 360, right? It needs to be a hit. This game has to be good so that for the rest of the year, they can advertise, hey, buy an Xbox 360 so you can play the new Halo game. That was how they operated. Nowadays, they don't do that. They just have to hit a mark. It doesn't matter. They just, between every single platform, they just have to sell a certain amount of copies of that game. They don't take their games and they're not proud of the games developed by Xbox. Like Xbox, when they develop a game, they're not proud of it. And they're like, hey, this is an Xbox only game. It's awesome. You have to buy an Xbox Series X to play this game. It's just that good. You're going to want to buy it. Trust me. They're not doing that anymore. They're like, hey, we just developed this game. You can play it wherever. Who really cares? That's kind of the impression I'm getting. And I like the Xbox Series X. Like I said, I've always liked Xbox, but there's really, with my PS5, there's no reason for me to have this really in the first place. Sony, I mean, just to throw a little bit of shade to them, because I've been throwing so much shade to Xbox here, Sony's sitting on probably 100 IPs that are still exclusive, and they're just doing nothing with them. So it's not like Sony's in a much better boat. The only difference is that they're focusing on their consoles still, at least, I think. Announcing the PS5 Pro.
Yeah, well, and one thing to add there, like especially with the IPs that they're just kind of sitting on, one that people just absolutely love, but they do nothing with, Bloodborne. Absolutely Bloodborne. People want more Bloodborne, and yet the only thing that people have gotten in any recent time from Bloodborne is a fan-made game. That's it.
PlayStation has a few games that are still exclusive, but I don't think, like Ghosts of Tsushima, right, was a pretty big game for them, I'd say, on the PS4, right. I believe. Ghosts of Yotei, we're still kind of waiting to hear some numbers. From the numbers I'm hearing, it wasn't a failure. By no means was it a failure. When you compare it to another PlayStation exclusive like Concord, it wasn't a failure. No, it was good. It made sales, millions of copies sold. I just don't know if it hit the number they were striving for. I feel like it's fair to say. I
definitely think that's fair to say.
So they're still releasing some games here and there. Like Astrobot just won Game of the Year, 2 years ago. So it's not like PlayStation's in a drought. They have some recent successes, but I feel like they could absolutely run away with console like Nintendo's in its own league. I think everyone knows that. No one's touching Mario. If you want to play Mario, you're on a Nintendo device. It's really even hard to pirate those games. Nintendo's done such an incredible job with that. The Switch 2, supposedly one of the hardest consoles to crack ever. The Switch 1 was really hard to crack. 2, from my understanding, it took them a little bit. PlayStation, I don't know about, cracking it. I'm sure people could hack into it and emulate that. But the amount of exclusive games that they're sitting on, they could absolutely run into a league of their own, just like Nintendo was. Kind of like gaming was in the early 2000s, I feel like. I feel like you had to buy an Xbox, you had to buy a PlayStation, and you had to buy whatever Nintendo console was out in order to play all your games. And think about being a game reviewer in 2008, right? Let's just pick a random year. 2008, top games released. Here, I'm just gonna go off, man. I am gonna list
Dead Space.
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna list a ton of games that came out in 2008, and this is on every single console imaginable, right? You got Grand Theft Auto 4,
the newest Turok.
Yep, Fallout 3, Metal Gear Solid 4, Dead Space, Left 4 Dead, Gears of War 2, Fable 2, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Call of Duty World at War, Mario Kart Wii, God of War, Chains of Olympus, Mirror's Edge, Far Cry 2, Saints Row 2, Persona 4, Burnout Paradise, Braid, Battlefield Bad Company, Devil May Cry 4, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, Little Big Planet. Gosh, I could just keep going, man. There's still a couple more, but I'm just not going to get too far into the depths. But right there, man, that is a ton of games. And look at all the exclusives. Super Smash, there you go. Mario Kart Wii, you have to get a Wii to play those two games. Those are two very popular games. Gears of War 2, once again, that is Xbox only. I know for a fact
I think Little Big Planet.
Yeah, Little Big Planet for a fact is PlayStation only. Oh my goodness, man. And then 2009, yeah, you just go 1 year into the future. And listen to how heavy of a year this was. Uncharted 2, so there you go, PlayStation. Infamous, PlayStation. Killzone 2, PlayStation. PlayStation's got 3 of their most popular games of all time right there in 2009. Oh, Xbox must be a bunch of bums. Nope, Minecraft came out on Xbox. We were talking about how Minecraft was only on the Xbox 360 there for a while. Halo 3 ODST, yeah, just a bum game right there no one cared about. What a stat, and that's not even all. Borderlands dropped that year. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 dropped that year. Dragon Age Origins dropped that year, Resident Evil 5, Bayonetta, Forza Motorsport 3, Prototype, Plants vs. Zombies came to console that year, funny enough. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Halo Wars, the original Halo Wars dropped that year. I didn't know that either. But I feel like to be a game reviewer in 2008, 2009, and I could keep going. I just don't want this podcast to go on forever. You just Google 2007, 2006. And to be an actual game reviewer or a gamer in the year 2008, 2009, you had to have all three consoles. You had to have an Xbox 360. You had to have a PS3. And you had to have whatever console the Wii had. I'm pretty sure, or the Nintendo had. I'm pretty sure it was the Wii U in 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, which was the one that everybody really disliked, to be honest.
And it was. But they had a couple of good games on it. I think the console is really what held it back. I feel like the games weren't, some of the games weren't too bad. The console just wasn't very fun to use. I've played it today. I still own actually 2 Wii U's, and they're not god-awful. They were a little bit ahead of their time, right? Obviously, the Nintendo Switch came out just a few years later, and they fixed all the Wii U issues, and it's, once again, top 3 most consoles ever sold. Like, it's huge. So Nintendo was able to rebound, but back in the day, you had to have all the consoles. Let's look at 2023 games released. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking up most popular games released in 2023. Now, it's relatively recently, so we should know this. I don't think there's very many console exclusives for Xbox and PlayStation. You have Marvel Spider-Man 2, which wasn't super duper popular.
Yeah.
Nah, it was more of like a $60 add-on, if anything, apparently.
Yeah, and there's a couple of Nintendo games. Once again, Nintendo's always going to be in its own category. You have The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4, which I know is a decently popular game, Fire Emblem Engage. You have Super Mario Bros. Wonder, not a super duper popular game, but once again, Nintendo exclusive. But all these other games, I don't see a ton of exclusive games. Starfield for Xbox, but Diablo 4, Baldur's Gate 3, I don't think either of those were console exclusive. Dead Space, Dredge, Hogwarts Legacy, that's on everything. Mortal Kombat 1. There's really nothing here that's like popping out to me and being like, hey, console exclusive. You have to get a PS5 to play this game. What did I name for PS? I named Starfield for X. Would you buy a brand new Xbox Series X for $650 for Starfield?
No, absolutely not.
Alan Wake 2.
Honestly, Bethesda's gotten by. Like, I love Bethesda games. Well, I wouldn't even say Bethesda games. I love the Elder Scrolls series. I love the Fallout series. Bethesda has been the bane of both of those series, and it's literally only because they refuse to update to a new engine. I don't even want to get into that right now.
Yeah. No, there's a lot to talk about, but yeah, there's really no games here, even for the PlayStation.
No, to be 100% correct, I think Spider-Man is the only console exclusive besides the Nintendo ones. That's an obvious. Everything else is pretty cross-platform here.
It really is. Yeah, there's a couple that I'm looking at that we've missed for PlayStation. Death Stranding is a pretty popular franchise. Second game just actually dropped here recently. The second one not quite as popular. Helldivers was PC and PlayStation exclusive. It has now come to Xbox. So once again, you don't have to buy a PlayStation to play it. You could have had a PC and played it. That's what I did.
Yes, sir.
You know what's crazy? Look up Xbox Series X exclusive games. It gives me Xbox 360 games. It's giving me stuff like Sunset Overdrive.
Well, yeah, that's because those games are literally still exclusive to it, and you can play them on the new consoles. But that's why they have it listed.
Yeah, it is not a new console. The only ones that are popping up are the Outer Worlds 2. That's somewhat recent. Halo Infinite in 2021, Avowed, which that was a failure. Starfield, which we talked about, we wouldn't buy an Xbox Series X just for that. Stalker 2 did release on PC, but I guess I didn't know this. It also released on console, so could get that on Xbox. My goodness, there's nothing. I mean, it's listing Halo 3, the original Fable, Gears of War, but it's all stuff from the early 2000s. There's really no exclusive games for the Xbox Series X. I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Bendy?
I've never played the series because if I'm not mistaken, it is Xbox exclusive, the State of Decay series.
That is another one, yeah. So there is a State of Decay 3 announced, I believe. That one's not out, but State of Decay 1 and 2 came out in the Xbox One era, if I'm not mistaken. I think both consoles, or both those games came out during the Xbox One.
Yeah, something like that.
But the Xbox Series X, I mean, this console's been out since 2020, and we're at the end of 2025, about to enter 2026. I can't even name you 10 Xbox Series X exclusive games that I actually really give a shit about. But maybe like 3. What else you got? You got Starfield, Halo Infinite, Forza, Avowed. I already said Avowed. Gears 5. No, that's not. Gears 5 is Xbox One. That's 2019. I know. Like most of the games, truthfully, on Xbox, you can play on PC. Like Stalker 2, that's on PC. Like Xbox just doesn't
And
have
therein
anything.
lies the issue.
It is the most expensive console on the market. It has absolutely zero exclusivity. So any game that you would want to buy an Xbox for, you just buy a PS5 for $150 less, or potentially this new Steam machine for a little less if they end up making it a little less, and you could just play it there with darn near the exact same specs as you would on an Xbox Series X or a Rogue Ally. I'm just digging into. I'm a huge Xbox fan. I gotta put that out there. If anything, if you had to tell me I had to game on Xbox in 2012, if you told me for the rest of your life you have to game on Xbox or PlayStation, I probably would have chose Xbox. Massive Xbox fan. You were to ask that same question to me today, would you game on PlayStation or Xbox the rest of your life? I don't know if I could say Xbox, because truthfully, you know you're going to get all the Xbox games on PlayStation, but you're not going to get all the PlayStation games on Xbox, especially if PlayStation gets their head out of their ass, which I'm just fingers crossed they do. They've had a couple of pretty rough releases with some games that have flopped. PlayStation has actually, I think, the biggest video game flop in the last decade, easily. So it's don't get your hopes up yet, right? But they're feeling the burn. I don't know. Benji's kind of been in and out here, but just because we haven't heard a lot from you yet, just with all these consoles. I mean, what's your rundown? Give us your full rundown here.
Well, I mean, pretty much like how early you guys were talking about, like the Xbox Ally X is, or what is it? Yeah, it's like going for what, almost 1,000, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. Like at that point, you might as well, like, personally, because I just upgraded my PC from a crappier one to a better one. At that point, like my PC was selling for, it was on discount, and it's like at that point too, same thing. You might as well just wait. You know, you kind of at that point you should just wait, find a PC from Best Buy or PC Game, which is from somebody. They're gonna be selling a good PC here soon. It's gonna be on sale. Like mine is originally $2K, but I got it for $1,400. At that point, you might as well just save up a couple $100 more, get it for cheaper. Or at that point even just build your own, because honestly with the specs and everything, I'm like, you probably could do better than what they're selling.
Absolutely.
But and it's like just pretty much just that. It's like at that point, if you're gonna spend $1,000 on it, I expect that thing to be running like a fucking beast. My bad, freaking beast. But I mean, and then like the whole exclusive, you know, all the console exclusives. I kind of do miss the console war, like how you were talking about that earlier, Spence, and then like saying the same thing. Like, you know, I really do believe that back in the day when we were all kids and whatnot, I feel like the console wars was pretty hardcore. I feel like even if it was like, oh, just for, you know, just for fun, is console wars. I really feel like the console wars were pushing Xbox and PlayStation to push out straight banger of games, you know. And I feel like I could be wrong about this. I think we just talked about this just 2 seconds ago, but I feel like PlayStation had a bigger list of exclusives that were pretty banger, but Xbox had just a couple, but man, those were bangers too. I never played any of them, but from videos I have seen, I know some of their exclusives, those were bangers. And like, again, PlayStation popped out bangers left and right. Xbox popped out too. Just exaggeration. They popped out too, and straight bangers, almost better than what PlayStation got. And I honestly think that, I do like that most games are cross-platform, but with this new ROG Ally, you need to have some game for it that's gonna it almost needs like its own exclusive game, a game. So like, for example, if the new GTA 6, even though that's getting delayed again, if the only way you could play that is with the ROG Ally X, is that kind of like a good idea?
No.
I don't know where I was going with this. No,
but another game like that, if Xbox popped out another game where it was like, this is it, you want to play this on Xbox, you have to. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
But also with that too, it's like with Call of Duty right now, most of these Call of Duty games, they are requiring like over 100 gigabytes of like storage, and it's like, honestly, with these, where are their storage capacities? You could almost get them for about what, terabyte? If I'm not mistaken, terabyte of storage on that ROG Ally.
Original one, it's only half a terabyte. It's 512, and then the the $1,000 one's going to be a terabyte. Yep.
Yeah, see, it's like at that point for the base version, you might as well not even get it because like you could get Call of Duty on it and then like 2 games barely at that. Not even 2 games. Like honestly, you could get Call of Duty and maybe a lower end game like Minecraft, and that's about it. That's the only thing you're gonna have on there. And like even with the with the higher end versions, like it's like same thing. You can still have Call of Duty on there plus 3 games now. So a grand total 4, and it's like at that point you might as well just again shoot your way up for a PC, spend the extra couple $100, get a fat freaking hard drive, SSD, whatever, and then just call it a day from that.
I think you said an incredible point. Yeah, just save up, because if you're already going to spend $1,000, you might as well just save a little bit longer. Even if it's $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, I know that's a little bit more. But now, Xbox, if you want to play multiplayer on Xbox, you got to think, you got to have Xbox Game Pass. Even the minimum version now is what, $10 a month. So I mean, a year, that's $120 a year just to play online, Call of Duty online on Xbox. You gotta pay for that. You don't have to do that on PC. So you're saving a little bit more money. And I know PC, you need extra monitors and keyboards and mouse, so there's a little bit extra accessories. So always tack on a little bit more. But I just think of the long haul, especially if you can play all the same games on PC as you can Xbox, especially with Xbox Game Pass being on PC as well, PC Game Pass. Xbox, I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot. I think this is a move for them to go PC, because how else could it not be? I don't know.
Well, that, and it's like again, like I think I said this earlier the last time I had spoke. Xbox needs to bring something for like this ROG Ally. It needs to be like again, like a Nintendo with the Switch right now. They set the bar where no matter what, you could always take this this handheld console, take it wherever, take it on the plane. You go to your friend's house, in Paris, and you're like, all right, let's go hook this up to your TV real quick. Boom, done. Hooked up to the TV. That bar is set. That has to be a set in stone. You gotta, that's a requirement now for the handheld. You gotta be able to hook it up to your TV. I feel like that's the bare minimum now. The ROG Ally has to bring something else, like exclusive, like, oh, this is the reason why you need this, not just for like, oh, guess what? Now you get to play all your favorite games handheld, but you gotta pay us $1,000.
Yeah,
that's like the only thing exclusive they really got going on here. And it's like, again, at that point, $500, you might as well go get a regular Xbox or a regular PlayStation or a Switch, and then even the Steam Deck. Like the Steam Deck right now, I know that's pretty popular just for the fact that you can play all your Steam games handheld. And yeah, some of them, hit or miss if they can work properly, but that's pretty up there. I mean, there's a lot of Steam games.
Here's the thing about. One more thing too, because you just reminded me about a handheld console like the Xbox ROG Ally. They intend for you to be able to use it, on the go, like you mentioned. Let's talk battery life with handheld consoles. I mean, I'll use the Switch as an example first. Yeah, you play the Switch, I know, a light game on the Switch, like Monopoly. Yeah, you probably got a couple hours of battery, right? You load up Zelda Breath of the Wild on the original Switch, you got 45 minutes flat before that thing's yelling at you, man. And that's going to be the exact, and it's the same with the Steam Deck, obviously. If you're playing a hefty game on the Steam Deck, you don't have hours and hours and hours battery life. You're talking maybe an hour or two max, and that really depends what version of Steam Deck you get. For $1,000, do you think it's fair to have, an hour a battery life before you have to go and plug it in, or at least sit next to an outlet at the airport for 6 hours? I don't think so. So it's almost designed as a portable, not portable console, because you can't use it like on a plane. If you have a 3-hour flight, that thing's not going to survive 3 hours if you're playing a heavy duty game. Let's just be real. That, to me, that's a waste for $1,000.
No, and that does bring up the whole thing too. It's like you mentioning that too. If like the $1,000 one, it could run some games at better speed, better quality, all of this same thing. But higher performance also means higher energy consumption. Just like you said, that thing's going to go through within like 20 minutes. That's also hence the reason why all of our PCs come with like power energy efficient settings and all that. They they try to make it to where it's not so demanding, but you gotta give something to get something. You want to have a pretty high performance PC running max settings. It's gonna draw a lot of power, but you try to do the opposite.
step away from just, handheld consoles. Think of laptops, just is bringing into the PC world. You can have a laptop on, typing papers, doing your homework for hours and hours and hours. The second you load even a game like Minecraft, that thing's got 45 minutes. It doesn't matter how good your battery is. That's just the truth about handheld consoles. And if the whole pushing point for this Rogue Ally is, hey, it's handheld, you can play Xbox on the go. You can play Xbox on the go for maybe an hour, but you better find another outlet and a charger soon, because you're not going to be doing it all day. If you're on a 8-hour car trip with your family, right? It's not surviving the 8-hour car trip. You got a couple of hours. You better have other stuff to do stuff. So I don't know. That's another great point, I think. My last point, right, and I think this is about it for the episode. So we're talking really 4 major companies this episode, right? We're talking Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch 1 and 2. We're talking Xbox with their consoles, but also their Rogue Ally announcement. Now we're talking Steam, how they're coming out with the console. But they've also had the Steam Deck for a while, right? Where the hell is PlayStation in all this? Historically, PlayStation has some absolute, almost Hall of Fame handheld consoles. I wouldn't quite put it there. I think the DS smoked the PSP and the PS Vita, but those are 2 very popular consoles. If you guys remember growing up, riding the bus to school, every kid either had a DS or a PSP. No one had both, right? It was the console wars of the handhelds. You were either playing like GTA on your PSP or you're playing Pokemon on your DS, man. I remember those days very vividly. So we've been talking handhelds this entire time, but we haven't even mentioned PlayStation. So, we've talked about how this Xbox handheld console, I don't think for the price is absolutely worth it in any way, shape, or form, but now this is another point for Xbox too, I could circle back, but could PlayStation announce a handheld in the future with some exclusive games? And okay, here's another thing for Xbox. This is not their goal, right? This may be like damage control if they end up announcing this, because they've announced the Rogue Ally is like, hey, your Xbox, every game that's on your Xbox, you can play on this. They're not advertising it as, hey, we're making a whole new line of games designated for on the go. They're going to be not as heavy duty. They're going to help battery. They're not designing that. Could PlayStation technically go down that route and maybe design games that are better played for a handheld on the go, but based off of their IPs that they own? Possibly. I don't think PlayStation gets in the handheld market. I mean, I would be shocked with 3 consoles now. Once again, you would have to have some absolute bangers for exclusive games to really get people to go to your handheld console. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? That's just me kind of thinking outside of the box here.
PlayStation is kind of just lacking, like you said, with back in the early 2010s eras, when we were all kids. Like PSP was up there. I know a couple exclusive games. Like I used to have a PSP. I used to run Monster Hunter. Kind of one of the reasons why I almost failed both 5th and 6th grade, because I played that game nonstop. That was exclusive for a handbit. That was exclusive. I think the first entry was PlayStation 2, but the entirety of the second entry of that series was exclusive to the PSPs, and then eventually moved on to the DS. But PSP was up there. I know recently, or I say recently, but it came out not too long after the PS5 came out. They have the PlayStation Portal, and it's pretty much just like a walk around your house. If you can't get, perfect for us dads right now. You can't get on the actual TV, but you want to keep playing. You get that PlayStation Portal, and you just walk around. But if I'm not mistaken, that thing is very, very limited. Like, it's almost kind of a waste of money, honestly. If I remember correctly, you can only, I think it has to be purely on Wi-Fi, and it's like you have to be constantly, you have to have PlayStation Plus, which, mind you, PlayStation Plus ain't cheap. If I'm not mistaken, PlayStation Plus Essentials, which is the cheapest membership version, is currently, I believe it's almost like $70. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that. I know it's up there. It's no longer like the $50 like it used to be back in the day. Yeah, it's expensive, and if I'm not mistaken, pretty much it's like useless to get the PlayStation Portal. Again, you're just walking around the house. You can't actually sit down on the couch, play the new Monster Hunter Wilds or Helldivers. Well, pop out that PlayStation Portal, and that's about all you're gonna do. But I mean, really, PlayStation kind of been lacking with their handheld console game. I mean, they used to be up there like almost legends with the handheld consoles, but now dog doo doo, absolute dog doo doo. They don't even care about it.
Well, I'm going to build on that too, but what about Judd? What are you thinking about the whole handheld deal that I mentioned there?
I mean, to me, like, I don't know. The only real handheld I played was Nintendo DS. And while I do have a Switch, the original Switch, mine actually came shipped to me broken. So I'm not really impressed with the Switch because the console itself works. That wasn't what was broken when it came to me. What was broken was the dock. To this day, I have not played my Switch on a TV because the dock was broken upon arrival to me.
Man, you should have returned that. That's a bummer. Because, yeah, I feel like party games like Mario Party or even Smash, and some other games, I feel like that makes a big part of the Switch is just being able to, when you have people over, plug it into the TV.
Right. Well, and that's I might be missing out on it in some ways or whatever, but most of the gaming that I do is on a console. I don't or PC nowadays, and I just don't think I need to invest in handhelds and stuff because there's not any games that I'm interested in that are coming out on handheld anymore. Now, if the new Pokemons were any good at all, like if they were good at all, if I believed they were good, I might invest in my Switch again, like, and get the games. But if Nintendo acts scummy again and like they don't backport any of the new Pokemon games and stuff, then I won't be getting them. And even then, I won't get any new Pokemon games because they've just them and Game Freak do not try at all anymore when it comes to the Pokemon series. So I'm not giving them my money when it comes to Pokemon games and stuff. And that's the only draw for me because, like you mentioned earlier, it was a war between PSP and Nintendo DS because they were the only ones back then. Me and my brother were firm Nintendo DS, and it's because we would do Pokemon playthroughs with each other. I mean, they weren't multiplayer or anything, but we would choose, like, me and my brother would always buy the opposite games from each other. So if he had Heart Gold, I had Soul Silver, or, well, it actually was the reverse. He had Soul Silver, I had Heart Gold. But it was the same for each one because they always released two. So, I would get the opposite from my brother, whichever one I liked more. And that was the case. And that's really the only reason that I played any handhelds at all, was literally for Pokemon specifically. But other than that, I had like maybe a couple games randomly here and there that I played. Like I do remember like this old Land Before Time video game for Game Boy Advance that I had, which obviously we're not talking about Game Boy, but you could play it on the DS because of the back portability with the original Nintendo DS. So a lot of the actual games I played weren't even DS games, to be honest. They were backport GBA games.
Yep, honestly, that's what carried the DS. The DS would have not been as popular if they didn't have that feature. I'm gonna say that right now, man. The fact you could take a Game Boy Advance game, slap it into a DS, and play it, it absolutely carried that console, 100%.
Yes, exactly.
And
they expanded on the usability of it because the old Pokemon games would actually be I believe some of them actually you could use both screens on.
Yeah, you could. And I was going to say, actually, they improved the gaming experience for, I would say, 90% of the Game Boy Advance games, because Game Boy Advance had a lot of issues with the screen and with lighting and stuff and noise. The DS cleared all that, so plugging one of those games in, I think, improve the experience. So yeah, that's getting sidetracked. That's the DS why it's so successful. But
yeah, I mean, other than that, like, there's not really anything that gets me into like the handheld or anything like that. So I mean, I'm kind of the opinion, like, I don't think it's going to capture the audience very well, especially like compared to already established handhelds and stuff. I do not think it's going to hold its own weight enough for people to actually care.
And that's probably why you don't think Sony will re-enter the handheld game. But I have a scenario for you here where I think handhelds could be successful, and I feel as if I think everyone here would still be interested. I mean, it's kind of what the Switch is doing, to be honest with you. If Xbox or PlayStation wants to be successful, they almost just have to do what the Switch is. You could have exclusives. We've gone down that rabbit hole. But don't design your console, your handheld console, because we've already talked about you could be playing Skyrim. You're going to have 30 minutes of battery. It's not going to work if it's not plugged in, right? So that kind of defeats the purpose of, hey, you can play anywhere you want, right? Take your Xbox on the go. It defeats the purpose. The battery life's not going to work. So don't design it for that. Go and create a $250, I mean, they're not going to make it that cheap, but a $350 handheld console, which is right on par with the Switch. Actually, it might even be cheaper than the Switch too. It's definitely cheaper than some of the Steam Decks. If I'm Sony, create a cheap console not designed to play heavy duty games. Because first of all, I don't think anyone's going to load up a handheld console to play Call of Duty. Yeah, I just think your
No.
experience is going to be bad. It's not going to play well. You're probably going to have more issues than you can imagine. So don't design it for Call of Duty, right? Go out there, platformers. Could you imagine if they came out with Sony and Astrobot specifically on the new PlayStation handheld console? Sell like hotcakes, man. If they started bringing back some of their exclusives like platformers and games that aren't super duper hefty, they'd absolutely do it. Imagine a new Spyro game if they, decided to do something like that on a handheld.
God, I wish they would pick that property back up. Holy.
There are so many games that they could bring back, or just envision, right? Designed for handheld. And it could be on their console too as an exclusive. But, I mean, design these games for handhelds. But the kicker is make the console cheap. And then design games that aren't going to drain the battery in a couple hours. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, right? One game of the year. Incredible game. Drains the battery, but it's an incredible game. And it was designed for the Nintendo Switch. It works very, very, very well on the Nintendo Switch. So it's not like you can't go and do an RPG or do a bigger and heavier game, but you got to keep platform in mind. You can't just go and be like, all right, Nintendo Switch, we're adding BioShock. It doesn't really, we're just going to revamp BioShock. You got to start from the ground up.
To expand on that before you keep going, Spence, that's also a reason why when you play the Breath of the Wild, like the graphics are there, it does look like more high def cartoony, just the style. But that's also a reason why most of the environment does not have extraordinarily so much detail. That's why everything's still kind of roughly drawn out,
Yeah.
Because they probably already figured that.
Yeah.
But and it's they figured that. That's why when you look throughout the whole grass biomes everywhere, all the trees, they're all more not heavy, deep, rich colors. They're all more pastels type colors. Everything is mostly more pastel, lighter colors, nothing so rich and demanding,
Exactly. Yep. No, you're absolutely right. Right. When they designed Breath of the Wild, they knew the console, they knew its limitations, so they went after it. You look at what a lot of these other games are doing and what's probably going to happen to these other handhelds. They're building Far Cry 7, right? They're not designing it for a Switch. They're not designing it for a handheld. They're designing it for PC, for Xbox, for PlayStation, the actual consoles that can handle it. And then they're like, oh shit, this has to be on a handheld too. Crap, what do we do? Game's not designed, it doesn't function, it's just miserable, drains battery. If they go out of their way and they create, I don't know, maybe a separate Far Cry game designed for a handheld console, it may not be as heavy duty as a Far Cry would be on console, but they could still design it to be a lot of fun and handle the console limitations, the handheld limitations. They could do exactly what you just said with graphics and stuff and not make it so demanding. I think there is a market for handheld games. I listed a ton of examples when handheld games would be beneficial. Travel's going to be the biggest one, right? You got a flight, you got a long drive. You're probably going to want a handheld. I know some people may try to sneak it into work or school and stuff too, like we did when we were kids, but there's a market for it. But the problem is, you got to get your money's worth, and $1,000 ain't going to cut it. A 30-minute battery life, I'm being a little facetious, an hour battery life ain't going to cut it, especially if you got several hours in a flight, several hours in a drive, like we mentioned. And yeah, it's a good idea. I think it's a good step in the right direction. I hated that in the 2010s, really the only types of gaming we had was PC, hardwired console into a TV, and then mobile. Mobile got way too big for absolutely no reason. Mobile gaming absolutely sucks, if you ask me. It was there should have been some sort of handheld.
God, I hate that mobile is actually being included in most gaming statistics nowadays.
Oh yeah, no,
it doesn't
terrible.
make any sense.
No, if you're a mobile gamer, you're not a gamer.
It should be a crime.
No. Yeah, just because you play cookie click, we're getting sidetracked. All right, we're getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that, man, I think we went on a little longer than we thought we did, but yeah, we covered a ton. I mean, I think we hit just about everything. A lot to look forward to. I guess one last question for all of us here, right? We talked about the Rogue Ally, talked about the Steam Machine potentially. We're obviously waiting a price for that console. Benji's got a brand new PC. Is there anything else you're looking to add on to? Any new consoles? Anything piquing your interest? The Switch 2? I don't think any of us even own the Switch 2 or a Steam Deck.
No, and I will never.
Probably not. I don't even play the Switch 1 that much anymore. I've been wanting to get the new Tears of the Kingdom, but I rarely play my Switch 1 to begin with. So at this point, it'll just collect dust until I get to the I get time for it.
With the price, man, how can you, right? I feel like back in the day, I'm going back into it, and I'm sorry, but you could afford to go and buy a Wii or a Wii U, or if you're an Xbox 360 gamer, you can go out and buy a PS3 and let it collect dust because it didn't break the bank. It's not something you had to mortgage. Take a second mortgage on your house for.
Right.
Nowadays it is, right? I'm not willing to spend $500-$600 on a new console. And I'm a collector. I have over 50 consoles, 30 different consoles. I have duplicates of several consoles, Xbox 360s. I got multiple Xbox Ones. I got multiple PS4s, PS3s, all that stuff, multiple Wiis, all that stuff, right? I'm a collector. I absolutely love games, gaming, in consoles. I don't have any interest to expand on that anytime soon. Even if I could, I don't think I would, unfortunately. We're just going to have to let time play out, and it definitely stinks. But, yeah, man, I think we hit it all. There's a lot of awesome conversations I think we could have. Ubisoft, obviously, with the news, Call of Duty, Battlefield. There's a few other things we brought up. Nintendo, we're talking about having a Nintendo-only episode, just going over that. But that's all stuff to look forward to, man. We may get another episode this week. May do a twofer this week, or I don't know. We'll figure it out because if some big news comes out with Nintendo, to summarize it, they essentially, we'll get into it, but they could be going bankrupt. They could be getting bought out, essentially. Could be nothing. We'll see. But if either of those first two things happen, man, that's big news. And I want to talk about it. We've all had our gripes with Nintendo. I've used them as examples just about every time out of spite.
Yeah.
But
well, it's so easy to. They just become they've become the scumbags of the gaming industry, and I think it's so sad to see.
It is, yeah.
Because they have some of the most beloved franchises.
Yeah.
Especially recently, they've been more scummy. Back in the day, we could say like when we were kids, they were icons. They were definitely iconic with Zelda, Mario, all that. The DS was a staple, but
You're
now
talking Nintendo. we're talking Ubisoft there at the end. Sorry,
you right. I realized.
I was like, wait a minute. No, but Nintendo has two though.
You accidentally said no Nintendo. That's why.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No,
yeah,
I
you
meant
said Nintendo a couple times.
Well, no, I was talking. Well, I wanted to do a full Nintendo episode and a full Ubisoft episode. I'm talking Ubisoft. I think I did say Nintendo. Damn it, Ubisoft may be going out of business or getting bought out. But we are planning to hopefully do a Nintendo only episode and a Ubisoft only episode, especially if that comes to fruition, if they get bought out or anything. But no, you're right. Nintendo back in the day. Really, it's true for both those companies. You think Ubisoft and Nintendo over a decade ago, absolute top of tier. Everyone's
monsters.
They were monsters. Everyone was comparing those two companies to everyone else. Nowadays, I mean, look at Ubisoft stock. That speaks for itself. Nintendo, that's a whole rant we can go on, but unless you guys have anything else to say, sorry, I know this episode I think went a little bit long, but I think that's it for me. I'll stop my rant.
I think the long episodes kind of deserved after a long break, so
that's fair.
Fair enough.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thank you guys for joining me again. I know we all have busy schedules, so if anyone's out there is still listening, man, drop banana. Type banana in the comments just so we know who the OGs are. And drop ideas. If you have your own opinions, like we said in the first episode, this is supposed to be a two-way conversation. So if you guys have takes, if we missed something, if we were incorrect, if you disagree, agree with us, that's all good stuff. Love to see it. And we'll catch you in the next one, and hopefully it won't be a month. It shouldn't be, right? I don't think it will be.
I don't think it will be.
It'll be 2 months.
Yeah, there we go. We'll do 2. See you next year.
Extendo.
See you next year.
Just gunshot.
Benji's
not in the next one. Says yeah.
Well,
it's funny because I did little finger guns right down too. I was like, ah-da-da.
Oh god.
Oh no.
Had to put him down. I mean, to let him go.
I mean, not pay him anymore. Wait, we're getting paid.